Okay, part 3. Now that we know where capitalism came from, and who is not a capitalist, let's talk about its impact. And when I say let's talk, I really mean I'll talk, because this isn't a Zoom meeting. So, the basic idea of capitalism was supposed to be some people start a short-term or long-term company, and they sell shares in that company on an open market to raise investment capital. If the investment was a short-term company, like an English ship going to steal stuff from India, because again, England became a rich country because it stole stuff from India. When the ship returned and sold its loot, the investors got their investment back, plus a little profit. Now, if it was an ongoing, long-term company, the investors hope it would slowly appreciate in value, and they would either get a regular dividend payment or a one-time payout when they sold their share or their shares. Now, of course, if the ship sank or the company failed, the investors lost their money because it was a gamble and everyone knew it. But profit wasn't just about stealing or buying low and selling high. No. Profits in capitalism were, and still are, very much based on underpayment. Underpaying the workers. That's why some people call it wage theft. Paying somebody not enough for making some thing and then selling that thing for a whole lot more than you paid to have it made. And then pocketing the difference. Profit. That profit is why we have expensive products sold to us by extremely wealthy capitalists. Things that were made by poor workers. Anyway, in those early days of capitalism, corporations weren't the deathless succubi trampling through our societies, crushing our present and our future like methed out corporate cave trolls of today. No. Back then, becoming a succubus was a big gamble. But then, in 1886, in a little-known land use case here in California, a California Supreme Court clerk made a little change in the wording of a decision that touched on the 14th Amendment. Now, 14th Amendment, that's the part of the Constitution that says ex-slaves should be treated like citizens, and that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state in which they reside. The clerk put in an ambiguous twist, which could be interpreted as, since American corporations were born in the United States, they should also be treated as citizens. And boom! Corporations gained legal personhood. The clerk, probably in the pay of some businessman, just kind of added that. And then suddenly, with corporations being people and corporations being a person, among all the other financial goodies, it also meant that the responsibility got shifted from the head of the corporation to the corporation itself. So the executive could like ruin a town and ruin a bunch of people's lives, and then say, "Oh, it wasn't me. No, it was the corporation that did that. I was just fulfilling my fiscal responsibility, my duty to the bottom line. I was just following corporate orders." And you can't put a corporation in jail. So, with fewer or no consequences for their crimes, capitalists became worse than the aristocracy they replaced. I mean, looking around nowadays, you might think that our current crappy crop of billionaires is the worst America has ever seen. Oh, God, no. No. There was a time at the end of the 1800s, it might have been even worse. The age of the robber baron. And corporate capitalists, they didn't even pretend to follow the law. They just took over vital parts of our infrastructure, the railroads and the bridges and the roads, whole cities. They openly bought, not just rented, but bought local and federal officials. I mean, now at least we get cool technological gadgets from the overlords and oligarchs who own our government. Now, they called those days the Gilded Age. And this, the Gilded Age, this is what our modern oligarchs want to return us to. Back further than civil rights or voting rights, or way back before women had the right to vote. They want to go back to when there were no restrictions on capital at all. And definitely before there were any unions or workers' rights. Back then, common folks barely got squat. Oh, if you ever see a movie or a TV show about the Gilded Age, remember, all that fancy was not for you. You would have been working in a mine or working in the fields or in a shipyard or building railroads and eventually dying from cholera or typhus or tuberculosis or just starving to death. But with all that Gilded Age control over our economy, what did these robber barons create? Well, let's see. The Great Depression of 1873. The Depression of 1882. The Recession of 1887. The Recession of 1890. The Panic of 1893. The Panic of 1896. The Recession of 1899. The Recession of 1902. The Panic of 1907. You know, I wish they still called them panics. Nobody feels recessed. I mean, lots of people feel depressed. But everybody understands panic. Anyway, the Panic of 1910. The Recession of 1913. The Depression of 1920. The Recession of 1923. The Recession of 1926. And then the Second Great Depression of 1929. That's one we've all heard of. Oh, and that is not all of them. Oh, no. But after that Second Great Depression, some members of the government realized that leaving the economy of the United States in the hands of the rich bastards who value profit above everything else was just going to create an endless cycle of poverty and suffering and poverty and suffering for the vast majority of citizens. And at that point, the government actually stepped in and changed the structure and the culture of the United States. They put in place programs to benefit the average working person, unemployment benefits for those out of work, Social Security payments for those past working age, the National Labor Relations Act to protect organized unions, plus a whole shitload of banking and business regulations to protect the citizens and the country from the worst aspects of rampant capitalism. That was what was called the New Deal. And it was a new, better deal for the working people of the country. And the capitalists have been at war with the New Deal ever since, systematically dismantling each regulation on them and every program that helps us. What is their justification, you may ask? We've never really given pure, unregulated capitalism a chance. That's right, Elon. And you know why? Because every time America starts down an unregulated, pure capitalism road and lets free market capitalists get all jiggy with our economy, the whole damn country almost falls apart. Historically, the closer we've gotten to unregulated capitalism, the worse things have been. And I, for one, think it's batshit nuts that once again, we've let our ship of state hurtle towards an easily avoided iceberg of profit-driven stupidity just because a third, right, it's only a third, of the people who could vote, a third of the people who could vote, decided to give renowned con man and convicted felon Captain Donald J. Grabby Pants and his crazy-eyed, tweet-happy, drug-addled, nepo baby, neo-Nazi, narcissist, nutbag, Tesla Führer, Elon, an unfettered chance at the wheel. Thank goodness our great-grandparents were smarter than those fools who voted for these fascist criminals. And they were also smarter than all of the I refuse to vote for the lesser of two evils knuckleheads. and infinitely smarter than all those who failed to vote at all. Our great-grandparents had the wisdom to save this nation from its own unregulated greed after the Great Depression, with all of these protections and regulations that the capitalists keep trying to get rid of. Anyway, back to my point. Capitalism would let the cutest baby in the world starve to death on its doorstep, unless there was a profit in saving it. Profit is the capitalist rule. It's the only rule. Oh, did you ever hear about here's this quote from the CEO of Roche. It's a Swiss pharmaceutical corporation. A couple of years ago, he said, "We are not in business to save lives, but to make money. Saving lives is not our business." I'm sure he said it with a Swiss accent, but you get the meaning. Another pharmaceutical company, Merck, they knew that their drug Vioxx could kill you. But with $2.5 billion in annual sales and almost $50 a share, back when $50 was the thing, they reckoned their profits would more than take care of paying your surviving relatives for your fatal stroke. Same with OxyContin. It wasn't about easing pain. It was about profiting off of addiction, because that's the rule. It's all about making money. Hey, remember Enron? That pack of Texas-sized dickwads who manipulated California's energy market, ripped off their own workers' retirement funds, and giggled like little tickled swine when they heard about grandmothers freezing in winter. Why did grown men think that was okay? Because the philosophy of capitalism told them that anything done to get a profit was okie dokie. The cruelty and criminality of Enron was not the exception of capitalism. Enron is the rule. Remember the Pinto? Okay, for those of you who don't, it was a car. Ford Corporation knew that the Pinto could explode if rear-ended, but Ford calculated it was cheaper to pay for good marketing and wrongful death suits than recall and fix the cars. Nobody knows how many people were burned to death in Ford Pintos, dozens or hundreds. The let them burn Ford Pinto business philosophy is the rule. And Elon Musk's still on the road despite being crap Cybertruck has been found to be even more dangerous to the driver and to everybody else. More dangerous than a Pinto. Boeing cutting cost to improve their profits on their planes while risking your life and killing hundreds is the rule. Wells Fargo stealing from its customers while enriching its stockholders and executives is the rule. Underfunding schools so they can be privatized is the rule. Bailing out boardrooms while Main Street suffers is the rule. Trying to privatize our whole government, which we paid for, and which provides us services paid for with our tax dollars, to replace it with corporations and monopolies as far as the eye can see, is the rule. Profit at all cost is the capitalist rule. It's the only rule. Now you'd think that the stupid, cruel, short-sighted, self-defeating, blind greed of our profit-crazed elite would have led to a revolution decades ago. Villagers with torches, workers with hammers, farmers with sickles, chasing the let-them-eat-cake capitalist swine naked and screaming through the streets. The heads of well-paid CEOs held aloft on sticks by joyous, gleeful children. But for some reason, the underpaid and abused American workers didn't rebel. Why? Why not? Why not? Well, two things. First, as I said in part one, after the New Deal, the capitalists convinced a big chunk of the should-have-been rebellious working class that they were, in fact, also capitalists. And they should actually be fighting against the rest of the working class who are holding them down. They even gave these foot soldiers of capitalism a special name, the middle class. And that shit worked. But also, American capitalism actually kind of started to fail in the 60s, when all the other countries that had finally rebuilt their factories, because the factories had been bombed in World War II. Because, there was no American economic miracle after the war. It was just that everybody else's industries and factories had been bombed. And if Americans, or anybody, wanted some factory-made something, they had to buy it from us. But with no competition all that time, American products had gotten kind of expensive and really, really big. So when everybody else's factories were up and running, and Americans and everyone else finally had the chance to buy cheaper, smaller things, they did. I mean, we tried. We did what we could. Our corporate overlords did what they could. They tried to overthrow every government that they competed with, to take control of their factories, farms, and natural resources. But it wasn't enough. And America is left with this huge creation-consumption economy. And so, American corporate profits went down. And so, American factories started laying people off. And so, American workers started making even less money. So, they wanted even cheaper stuff. And they got, it just was a downward spiral. So, what could the capitalists do? How could they find a way to not increase the pay of the workers, because that'll cut into profits, but also convince those workers to buy things they couldn't afford? 2 words. Credit cards. The great Faustian gift of the capitalist to the working class. Buy now, pay for the rest of your life. Easy credit also helped keep wages low, since the workers only have to make monthly payments stretched out into an infinite future. Debt. Low wages, credit cards, and debt shifted our economy from mainly making things to buying things mainly made elsewhere. And American companies mainly moving the factories they had left overseas, where they could have a bigger profit, because they were paying the workers very little, the least they could. They would chase where they could pay workers the least, which leaves the workers here in, wait for it, debt. And isn't that exactly what the capitalists always say is the worst thing about government? But the government doesn't put you in debt. Capitalists do. I mean, you notice all of those never-ending internet subscription payments all of a sudden? When did everything become a subscription? How many do you have? Do you even know? I don't even know. See, a less than living wage and a subscription economy provides a steady stream of cash that flows. It flows to Wall Street and into the pockets of the capitalists. And it keeps this hollow zombie economy going. Capitalism is self-sustaining. Like a cancer, it sustains itself as it kills its host. Whoa, that was a lot. Sorry. But the question is, what are we going to do? Well, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about that next time in part 4. Oh, and when I say we'll talk, I mean I'll talk. Because,